Nwaji, Jibuno, and Uade, Akhimien. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Valentine. Good morning, Uade, and good morning, Lagos.
Good morning, Valentine. Good morning, YJ. And
Why'd you say that again? Because we missed that first part of it.
Okay, sorry, Valentine. I think your voice went a bit low. So I said, good morning, Valentine. Good morning, Uade, and good morning, Lagos.
Thank you so much. Uade, good morning.
good morning, Valentine. Good morning, YG. And good morning, Lagos, and all those listening in the diaspora.
Yes, welcome. You can watch us live on YouTube or streaming live. Leave a comment on that platform. You can also send a message through Twitter at Smooth981FM. The hashtag to add is freshly pressed 981. For the conversation today, you can use WhatsApp as well. WhatsApp number is 0809 444 0981. Waji, good morning. Wade, let's start with you. There's a breaking story here. It's a follow-up of the conversation around the information minister, the Minister of Communication, Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Mr. Pantami, who has been alleged to have made some damning statements in the past, about 20 years ago. The presidency seems to be backing him up based on this headline from the Punch newspaper, saying that the rhetoric has been spread and asking him to resign or be sacked, stemming from his enemies, those who do not want him against the good work he's been doing. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, going through the story, one thing for sure is the presidency believes that the minister for communications is doing a good job, and as such, they don't think that what he said 20 years ago should actually affect what he's doing today. To some extent, that might be true, but if you made statements supporting terrorism 20 years ago, it might be a bit difficult for people to believe that you still don't have those kind of thoughts in your head. Some of the things they've said that he's done, he's improved the communication space, or the ICT space, in the last 2 years. However, when you look at the ICT space over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of investments, mostly from the private sector, towards ensuring that that becomes the new haven for business. Aside from ICT, when you think about it from the fintech perspective, that area is really, really growing, and it's growing really great. So for me, I guess they want the man there, and they would support him and back him. And what beats me is really when you say that it's from his enemies. If a man made a statement 20 years ago about issues relating to terrorism and supporting or allegedly supporting terrorist group, I think the best thing is, even if you reneged it yesterday, I think the best thing is for you to not is to not just take back the words, but show some action by leaving the position, and show some form of honor for me, and that really is. But if you say in 2 years he's grown the ICT sector by 18%, I don't really know what he has done in the last 2 years that has
so
made it jump that much.
Is that important to consider, or does that automatically forgive, or is that an automatic healing balm on a personality that has been expressed and was grossly ignored by the panel who was supposed to have carried out some background investigation, or just acted on actionable intelligence based on what he said in the past? If you're supporting terrorism, I know for a fact you're not going to be granted visa, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to travel abroad, for instance. So those things are not ignored. And I know in a visa form, for instance, the UK visa form, you have to
yes, I do.
Sections, not one. I'll ask you if you had any affiliations or give any sort of support in the past. Nobody asks you whether you're saying it now as you're feeling involved, or have you ever? So those are essential questions. So if your visa can be declined on the merits of what you said before, how then are we having this conversation and trying to do some damage control, especially from the president?
But Valentine, that's why I said the man should be honorable, because when you think about it, a man, anybody who makes a statement about anything, are you with me, probably has strong convictions about those things. And at the end of the day, like you said, and like I said earlier, it's not what you've done now that changes the fact that you have done what you have done in the past. It's like saying someone committed a murder, but because now he's become a good citizen, then you shouldn't arrest him for that murder and try him accordingly. So I think the backlash is I'm trying to find the right word. The backlash from everybody is I can't find the right word. However, going forward, like I said, the man should be honorable. If you've made those statements, then do the honorable thing. But like in Nigeria, I don't really know where honor stands.
That speaks volumes there. Well, thank you, Uade, for your thoughts shared. We're streaming live on Instagram as well, Smooth981 at Valentine Ohu. Yemisi sent in this one from Oxford Circus. He says, good morning, Smooth FM. How did the Minister of Communication get here in the first place, to get there in the first place? All those wild utterances that the federal government claims Pantami has taken back is just flimsy excuse to keep the man in office. What kind of exuberance is that? Anyhow, in this present dispensation, body language is more important than verbal carelessness, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Louis Salman says, Pantami, like all Muslims at that time, held a position against the world that enjoyed the persecution of Muslims in Palestine, Iraq, Afghanistan, and etc. community. It's hypocritical to which hunt and obviously successfully was continued to add great value to government just because he spoke against persecution. There's no link to Al Qaeda. It's a misleading rhetoric. That's what T. Salman says. He's one of the proponents that Pantami should not or should be excused from those rhetorics in the past. Tayo from Ajah says another instance where government gets it wrong. I hope the world is aware of how we are managing our security problems. This just reminds me of how the government failed to go against those that ignored the protocol when the former secretary died. Now, let me ask a question, and I'll move on from this quickly after that. When did this Boko Haram insurgency start in Nigeria, especially Boko Haram? Was it in the last 5 years? Was it in the last 10 years? Was it in the last 11 years? It's more than that, right? Uade and Nwaji.
So let Nwaji take that.
Should we say that, if somebody who had made a rhetoric like Pantami did 11, 10, 12 years ago and caused some youth to take up arms and go into terrorism, should we say that, based on the fact that they were not the ones that made the utterances, they just acted on an instruction or an inference by a superior officer, that we should forgive them, based on the fact that, we've forgiven the principal or somebody who instigated such action? Should we say that?
Hi, Valentine. Just before, Valentine, we're having trouble hearing you. It's like your volume is a bit low. I don't know, maybe you can just increase it a bit, because I can hear Wadi, but I'm hearing you a little bit. Just to answer your question specifically, Boko Haram in Nigeria came into play, I think, with some kind of prominence around 2008, thereabouts. Because I think the leader at that time was actually cordoned off by the military forces, and then that's when you had this new guy come in. That really took place. It's a tricky question because, to be fair to the presidency, everything they are saying on paper is correct. That this is a man that made the statement. He has atoned for those statements. He doesn't hold those views till today. It's what he said at a particular point in time, and he has traversed and grown and evolved and no longer holds those views. So from a release statement, there's nothing wrong with that. But back to Wade's point is about what is the honorable thing to do. And that's when you now begin to get tricky and murky with what is the honorable thing to do. And I think it also gets philosophical, because I guess in other parts of the world, we see individuals resign from their posts and move on. But to be frank and honest, in this culture, does that necessarily apply? It's not something we've seen people do for past, transgressions or whatever the case may be. So I honestly don't have the answer with regards to what is the right thing to do. I think what's most important is the statements which have been made is that he no longer holds those views. It was something that was made at a time. Even Pantami himself said that he was misled. He had the wrong information. It's something he didn't believe. I mean, Valentine, let's all be honest. I mean, I know I said some things in my 20s that under no circumstances whatsoever would I even say now. And even furthermore, I would recant some of those things that I said. So it's tricky because of just the way human beings are. I don't have the answer with regards to what is the right thing to do. I think it's very easy to say he should resign and be removed. But I think at the same time, you have to look at human beings and how we evolve over time and then begin to ask yourself, like what they said, what is the honorable thing to do? So I think it's a tricky one. I don't have a single issue with any of the statements that have been made by both Pantami and the presidency. But with regards to the next steps, I honestly don't have the answer.
Thank you for that. Dan Okuda says from Igondo, Garba Shehu's statements is ridiculous and laughable. It's an insult to our sensibilities. Barrister Dan, thank you. Shegun says, no matter what you say, do, or achieve as a leader, if you become the story, your position is untenable. And Tony Salman says, Pantami has always spoken against Boko Haram extremism, for which he was targeted by the sect, condemned and threatened. Tony, I would say, well, we need to see a video. We need to see him address these issues, head on. Because yesterday it seemed like an insult when the Federal Executive Council just walked over the issue and did not mention it at all. And Pantami led the prayer, the opening session. But let's move on to the next story. Vanguard newspaper reports in its headline that as against the touting that is being experienced across the nation, especially at the immigration offices or the passport offices, there was a recent move to ensure 24 hours passports procurements by citizens. They said this has been taken advantage of by touts and those who are in the habit of extorting vulnerable Nigerians. What are your thoughts regarding this story, especially as the federal government is deploying undercover agents at these centers? Nwaji.
Valentine, is a very interesting point. And, the larger question is that you can point your fingers all you want at touts, but touts are pretty much the agents of the provocateurs that work within the passport office. They would not do this without the help and the aiding of individuals who work in that office. And that is the truth. So you're deploying, agents to go and spy on your fellow colleagues who, for whatever reason, Valentine, deploy or engage these touts to make extra money or in some cases to actually make the process a lot more seamless. So these individuals that they call touts work hand in hand with the individuals that work in the passport office. So you see, for me, that is not the issue. The issue is how do you ensure you professionalize and make sure you have a smooth running system? So for me, once you take care of those things, then there's literally no need for touts. If these things are done electronically and you have call-up systems and numbers and everything else, and then you apply for a passport online, you make your payments and you do everything and you get a particular number, all you literally have to do is show up at the date that you've been told to show up. You do your capture, you do your biometrics, then you leave, and then you show up on the day of collection. If these things are done in a very coordinated and organized manner, then you literally do not have any need for touts. So when you're going there to say you're going to spy and make sure there are no touts, I don't understand what you're actually doing. Are you actually going to make the system a lot more efficient? Are you going to your point, Valentine, have a situation where people get their passports in 24 hours? I do not think so. So for me, the larger conversation is making sure that you revolutionize the system so that you make it a lot more efficient than it currently is. And then by doing that, you absolutely eliminate touts in that particular office. It's literally that simple. And I don't know why we keep dancing around this conversation with doing the right thing. We always want to ignore doing the right thing and talk about the symptoms. Talk about the symptoms and not address the actual issue. The issue is that the system is flawed. Until you change the system, touts are going to take advantage of it. And that's just the long and short of it.
Thank you so much, Nwaji. Okweluwa said that touts mentioned in the story work with the immigration officers. We don't need to cover, to overstretch this issue. Just go there and fish them out. And you're right, Nwaji, when you said, eliminate. That's the word I was just hoping you would say. Because if you put in a strong system, especially when the old system has been compromised, that's one surefire way to, at least add some blockages to the leakage that's existed or that has been introduced. Let's go to this next one. The Supreme Court justice wants presidents, governors' immunity to be removed, especially for electoral infractions. He likens electoral infractions to offenses that are treasonable offenses, right? And he said the immunity does not stand. If the elected officers are found to be wanting, especially culpable in electoral offenses, they should immediately be removed and sanctioned. What are your thoughts, please?
Valentine, I'm not a lawyer, so this is really interesting. Why do you want to do that when there is a process clearly stated on how you can take out someone who you feel has committed treason? There's an impeachment process. So what happens to the National Assembly or the state assemblies towards ensuring that if you believe that a governor or a president or a sitting president has committed an offense, whether it's electoral or it's treasonable or whatever, or it's criminal, and you cannot impeach that person. So for me, why are we always trying to reinvent the wheel when you have the system already in place? If the National Assembly feels that the president has breached an electoral, has committed an electoral offense, then do the right thing. It's not only it won't be the first time of impeaching anybody, whether it's in the National Assembly or in the State Assembly, but do the right thing. So when you call for this, for a temporary immunity, removal of the immunity from the Constitution, then for me, it's just you telling short-termism of trying to solve problems does not work. Implement what the Constitution says, implement what the law says, implement what the regulation says, and at the end of the day, you get a better system. And it's the same thing Uade just said now about the passport issue. There are systems in place. Put them, and they have been put in place for a reason. So implement them, not just trying to yank out things, bits and pieces, because you want to solve a problem temporarily and then create another monster in the near future. So for me, I don't think it's the right way to go. However, if you say you require more powers for the court, then go and review the laws and put in the powers that you expect or you think are the right powers for the courts to be able to make these decisions.
That's where you're right on the money. That last statement you made, go and review the laws. The present constitution has been criticized by most as lopsided and should be reviewed, and that call didn't start today. Justice Ejembieko, who's making this call, mentioned that and also said, first of all, you need to review the constitution because the present constitution as it exists today, as you and I are having this chat, provides immunity to sitting governors and presidents, right? And protects them from any prosecution whatsoever. And you know the impeachment process is not today. It's not something you just start now, pass first, second, third reading like that. You have to seek for petitions to be signed by the constituents that put them in there in the first place. So some of those things, exactly. I mean, these are the suggestions that go hand in glove. But thank you for that, Uade. Let's take messages, quick ones here. This one from, what's your name? Please, Cruz. Cruz says, what does it take to arrest the touts? Are people in authority just talk more than they walk? And this one from Barua, still speaking to the case of Pantami. Godwin from Bagada says, to err is human, but to forgive is divine. Still on Pantami, let's move on, please. Jim says, I agree with the justice. Politicians will not impeach because of selfish interests. Now, our next story, Nwaji, speaks on a move to make 2 polytechnics universities and also to legitimize Badagry as a French-speaking village or French village. The universities, or rather the polytechnics, is the Laro Polytechnic and Yabatech here in Lagos. Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I completely support this move because these 3 institutions, and I'm sure there are others, have proven over a very long period of time to turn out, very technically sound individuals, especially with Yabatech, and then also on the French village side in Badagry. I know a lot of people who have gone through those particular institutions and have come out quite top notch. So converting them to changing their status and giving them university status and polytechnic status obviously gives them more access to funding, gives them more access to grants and other things of that nature so that they can improve their facilities and continue to do the great work that they do. So for me, this is an important step in academia to begin to recognize these institutions. Because when you look at Yabatech, Valentine, it's been around even before independence, and they've been operating at that status for going over 60 years. And I think with something like that, you have to ensure that there's some level of growth. So I think this is a positive step in the right direction in the academic institutions, because institutions such as these, three specifically, which have been identified because of the work that they have been doing, have not been able to get specific grants and funding because of their non-university status. So I think as a function of them now being converted to this status, it opens up to these international funding that can come in, that can improve their facilities, get them more technically sound individuals, and begin to churn out more sound graduates for the future of Nigeria. So I think it's a positive move.
Thanks for that, Nwaji. America sent the message earlier. It says, we're deliberately crafty people when it comes to casual reasoning or the way we arrive at a conclusion. No matter how smart a Nigerian is, subconsciously we're trained, or we've been trained to deliberately shunt metacognitive processes that will lead to solutions and answers and we won't like or want. Dipo says, if you move Yaba to Badagry, would it still be called Yaba Tech? Don't leave me joke, right? Thank you, Dipo, for that. Next story, it's a Feel Good Friday, by the way. So Vanguard has this headline, World Bank, we aided Nigeria power sector with $1.25 billion. Yet. Okay, so there's a target, right? By 2030 or thereabouts, that Nigeria would, it's actually a plan, an existing plan that the federal government is going to achieve this program called Power for All, something like that. I'm just paraphrasing. But is that target tenable? We've been seeing that, first of all, yesterday we treated the Mambila power projects, how that loan has not been gotten and has forced the federal government to to crash the budget from about $5 billion to about $1.25 billion. But what are your thoughts regarding this? Why is the World Bank making this statement, and what does it imply for the power sector?
I think the implication is simple. You need to improve on the infrastructure, and if the World Bank has been able to provide the power sector with about 1.25 billion in the last 2 years, then it's so much money for you to invest in infrastructure, which is really where they're looking at. But one of the things that you also read is when they say only 51% of installed capacity is available for generation, and one of the major reasons for that is gas. Now, if in continually putting money into infrastructure and the things that you require for that infrastructure to work is not available, or everybody doesn't sit down on the round table and say, these are the things that we need to do, then you have a problem. On the issue of Wakili saying that they need to connect 1 million households to the grid annually, I don't know which grid they want to connect those households to, because already the grid in Nigeria is not sufficient to carry even the power that is available. So it becomes a chicken and an egg situation whereby you say, which do I do first? Do I sit down with the power generators and come to an agreement on how gas, because most of our facilities are run on gas, or do you want to just be connecting households to a grid that you are not sure that electricity is going to come through it, or put them on the grid and then you find out that the grid is the number of people on the grid is too much for the grid to manage. So it's unfortunate that this is where we are after almost 8 years of privatization in the power sector. But like I always say, and I continue to say, electricity is not cheap. But in balancing the social aspect of electricity, the government has to be able to tell the distribution companies, the generation companies, that these are the plans that we have, and set them out properly and provide the necessary resources, not resources in money, but the things that they require, like gas availability. And that makes it easier, because if you have people getting power 8 to 10 hours in a day, believe me, Valentine, people will pay, because people pay for power at much higher cost than what you get on the electrical grid when you run in some estates in Nigeria. So you find out that people who run generators even pay more for power at the end of the day. So it's good, but yes, we need to reassess that.
With that said, nicely put.
I can hear you.
If you mention, if I wish, as much as we mention the word grid, that would add life to the existing grid that we speak of, because we know how many times that grid collapsed this year. We know how many times it collapsed in a single month last year, more than it collapsed in years combined. And in saying this, it reminds me of yesterday I was invited to a premiere of a movie called Imofe, and in that movie, one electrician, one of the main characters in the movie, was an electrician, right, assigned to a company, and he kept working on the fuse box and kept wedging it with toothpick or cartons and stuff, strips of carton. If we keep patching the grid, for how long are we going to patch the grid? One day it's going to shut down and everything will just stop. So that's where my problem comes from. So anytime it sounds nice on paper, it sounds nice when we say here on Freshly Pressed, we have excess gas, but what are we doing with it? And there's a bigger question people are not asking: who are the people standing against the progress of Nigeria in terms of power? Can we name names? Can we actually identify this? But we'll come to a point in this country where we actually need to call out people that are not adding to progress and taking us back. But that's just the food for thought. Let's move on. Forex restriction is the next story from the Guardian newspaper. Nigeria spends $6.1 billion yearly on wheat importation. And this story, if you read the headline, you feel like, oh, there's another antagonism of the government that's coming, but it's a commendation by the president of the Association of Wheat Farmers in Nigeria, Alhaji Salim Muhammad. He said the recent CBN ban or Forex ban on wheat importation is actually a good move in the right direction. Do you agree, Waji?
Yeah, Valentine. You see, for me, it's very complex, right? I am a big promoter in local produce and local exports. I'm patronizing anything locally generated. So the question now becomes, how do you do that? Why are we spending this amount, or why were we spending this amount of money on wheat importation? Is because the industry just didn't exist within Nigeria to produce and feed the nation. So the question now becomes, at what point do you now begin to plug the gap? And what is the best way to do that? Obviously, government have believed that the best way to do that is to ban importation of these things to now go ahead and foster internal growth. I can understand the logic of it, but the problem is, what do you now do in the interim when you don't have the industries that now meet local demand? So it's what now begins to lead to, black market and smuggling and all these different things. So I sincerely believe that there should be a hybrid in terms of making sure that you identify possibly a few people that can have access to importation that are highly regulated by the government, while at the same time you continue to divert the relevant resources, financial capital, environmental friendliness, protections, and all these different things to allow the local industry to grow. And then you do that over a period of time, you fix it down, whether it's 3 years or 5 years or whatever analysis allows you to come up with, till you get to a point where you can ensure that the local industry is operating at a proficient enough capacity to be able to produce for the nation. So my suggestion is always a hybrid, because I think when you do an outright ban, you create a huge gap because you do not have the local capacity to supply, which is unfortunate. If we had the local capacity to meet the demands, then absolutely do a ban, so that way you make sure everything is done internally. But until then, I think there should be a hybrid. So I understand everything that's being said, but I think that until we have a proliferation of local producers that can meet local demand, then we need to have a think through about a hybrid situation to accommodate everybody.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Waji. Thank you, Uade. Unfortunately, we can't go into more stories, although there's another headline that speaks to Lagos State opening up about certain side effects that are already known to come with the COVID-19 vaccine, especially with the Oxford AstraZeneca strain, or rather brand for the vaccine. Is the usual, pain on the spot, mild pain on the spot, fever for some people, for some others, mild body pain for the first 24 to 48 hours. But there's always if you've taken vaccines as a child, if you ever remember how that felt, it's similar to that. But Waji is at the Corporate MC, corporate with a K. Please follow him on all social media platforms with the hashtag FreshlyPress981 to extend this conversation. Uade as well is at Re-Inc Nigeria. I want to especially thank everyone who joined in on YouTube Live and Instagram Live at Smooth981 at Valentine Ohu. Take care, brothers, and have a lovely weekend.